This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. It was cool and rainy this summer that Brother Benedictine joined the monks at St. Ignatius Abbey, located in a remote area miles from what is known as civilization. It had been a long and very tiring trip, but we welcomed the young novice to our humble home with a hearty bowl of gruel and a slab of crusty bread. The first stop on his agenda was a meeting with the Holy Father Simon. As the doors of the chamber closed, silent speculation ran rampant. Was Brother Benedictine aware of the requirements of our abbey? Prayer, penance, and a vow of silence? Yes, he was. But because of Brother Benedictine's special status, having spent so many years of his life as part of the outside world, Father Simon granted him a special privilege. Once a year, on the anniversary of his arrival, Brother Benedictine would be permitted to utter 2 words, and 2 words only. The new arrival soon fell into a routine about the abbey with the other monks, harvesting grapes, working in the winery, and transcribing the parchment scrolls. Time passed, and soon it was the first anniversary of Brother Benedictine's entry to our little world. He was called before the assembly of brothers to speak his 2 words. He stood tall before the congregated brethren and thought for a moment. Anticipation hung heavy in the room. Then Brother Benedictine cleared his throat and spoke out proudly. Hard work. The words echoed throughout the great hall. Several of the monks in attendance nodded their heads in agreement. Then we went back to our tasks, each and every one of us with silent concentration. The seasons passed, and soon it was time for Brother Benedictine to once again speak his thoughts. We gathered in the great hall as he took his place before us. A hush fell over the assemblage. Brother Benedictine thought hard for a few minutes, searching for the words to accurately summarize his 2nd year among the brothers of St. Ignatius Monastery. And, as before, 1 year prior, the audience of brothers waited with heightened anticipation. Then Brother Benedictine's face brightened. He had the answer, but his tongue was unused to speaking after almost 2 years of silence. Struggling, he formed the words, "Lousy food." Again, several of the monks in attendance nodded their heads in agreement. Then we went back to our assigned tasks. Alas, the seasons passed as they always do. A time to reap, a time to sow, a time to harvest, and of course, a time for study and prayer. Brother Benedictine spent a great deal of time in his cell, diligently studying and engaged in other scholarly pursuits. As spring and the 3rd anniversary of his joining the abbey approached, there was a festive air around the monastery. What insights would this now mature monk share with us? Brothers from distant abbeys who'd learned of the young monk's annual ritual made great pilgrimages to join us on this most special of days. Finally, Brother Benedictine, led by Father Simon, took his position before the hushed masses. He paused in thought for a time, contemplating the universe and our place in it. Glances of anticipation were exchanged, each brother on the edge of his bench, not wanting to miss any of the 2 words Brother Benedictine was about to utter. Finally, a ray of sunlight shone through the window, and once again, divine inspiration touched his brow. His countenance brightened. He looked up, his eyes sparkling, and he spoke words of such insight, such feeling, that to a man we were touched as we never had been before. Brother Benedictine spoke the 2 words that summarized life in the monastery as no words had ever done. He said, "Lumpy beds." The assembled throng broke out in tumultuous applause. Brother Benedictine bowed his head modestly. Then he held out his hands to hush the crowd. He'd something else to say, but this was unheard of. He was only permitted to speak 2 words once a year. What could a monk endlessly devoted to the work of this order possibly have to say? What would make him break his vow of silence? "I quit." This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. And many years later, when Father Simon was asked about the mystery of Brother Benedictine, the good father replied, "Good riddance. All he ever did was complain."